All right, so today we're moving on to Chapter 4, Section 5, Quadratic Equations. A big feature of what we're talking about in this video is a zero of a function, which is a value of x for which f of x is 0. And this is, in many parts, going to come down to the zero product property. That is the property that states if a times b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0. So the only way two things can multiply together and get 0 is if at least one of those two things is 0. So kind of basic example of this is if we have the number 5 times x equals 0, then one of those two things has to be 0. And clearly we know that 5 is not 0 because 5 is 5. So that tells us x has to be 0. The only way for that equation to be true is for us to have a solution of x equals 0. Where this applies to quadratics more often is what we're looking at here in example 2. This is somewhat of the type of problem you may see in this unit. So the quantity x plus 5 times the quantity x minus 1 equals 0. So we're looking for these two things, whatever they are, the sum of x and 5, the difference of x and 1, to have a product of 0. The only way for that to be true is if one of these two things is 0. So either x plus 5 must be 0 or x minus 1 must be 0. And these are Algebra 1 problems, one-step equations to solve. Just need to subtract 5 from both sides here to show that x equals 5 is one solution, negative 5. Or add 1 to both sides and see that x equals 1 is a solution. So we have two zeros of this function that occur when x is negative 5, because that would make this 0, or when x is 1, because that would make this 0. If you take that one step further, we need to factor first in order to solve here. So in example 3, we're going to solve x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. That might be a little intimidating at first, but from our last section, we know how to factor this. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to get us a positive 6, but add to get us a negative 5. So if we multiply to be positive, but add to be negative, we need two negative numbers. And those factors that multiply to 6 and add to negative 5 are negative 2 and negative 3 in some order. So now that we've factored, this looks a lot like example 2, where we can use the zero product property. If these two factors multiply together to get 0, then either x minus 2 must be 0 or x minus 3 must be 0. If we add 2 to both sides on this first part, we see that x equals 2 is a solution, so we have a 0 at x equals 2. Or if we add 3 to both sides over here, we get a 0 at x equals 3, and that's our other solution. And then I'll just do one more example with this, and we'll be done with this video today. Excuse me. All right, so example 4. 2x squared plus 6x plus 4 equals 0. We're not always used to factoring with a 2 out in front, but we hope we can factor that 2 out. All three terms contain an even number, so that means we can factor out the greatest common factor of 2 and get x squared. When we divide the 2 out of here, factor 2 out of 6x, you get 3x. Factor a 2 out of 4, you get 2. And now we want to factor this quadratic. We still have our 2 here, but we're going to want two numbers that multiply to get 2 and add to get 3. And those numbers have to be 1 and 2. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3. So this is the correct factorization of this problem. And now we'll use the zero product property again. We've got 2 times the quantity x plus 1 times the quantity x plus 2. Obviously, 2 is not 0. So that means one of these two factors has to be 0, either x plus 1 or x plus 2. I'll subtract 1 from both sides here to show that x equals -1, or I'll subtract 2 from both sides here to show that x equals -2. And we have two possible solutions for this problem.